Hey y'all, it's Ruta back with another video, and today it is my top 10 favorite books as of July 10th, 2019, which is today. So basically I'm going to be going through and talking about my top 10 favorite books, as the title implies, obviously, duh, and why I like them, who they're written by, and maybe you guys will be inspired to read some of them. These are top tier books. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I think let's jump right in. Number 10, What If by Randall Munroe is labeled as serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. So basically, it's a lot of different weird hypothetical questions that probably won't ever occur in real life that are answered correctly and scientifically. It's a really funny book and is littered with different comics of stick figures and funny answers, along with, the real answers. Number 9, Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. So, Lincoln in the Bardo is a very beautiful, also really sad book. Bardo is a Tibetan word which means the in-between place. So basically, the story follows Abraham Lincoln and his son Willie. Basically, it talks about Willie's death as a young boy. I believe he was only 11 or 12 or somewhere around that age. And it follows him into this type of purgatory, which is in the real world, but it's a bunch of ghosts, and they live in their graveyard, and they can see all the real people, but they can't really interact with them except by going inside them, basically possessing them. I really like this book because of how beautiful it is. It's kind of tragic. It paints a picture that depicts human grief. Abraham Lincoln comes in and visits Willie and talks to him, and it's just, as you read the book, it gets more and more beautiful and more sorrowful. It's also interesting because the book cites different historical sources, and it really gives you an eye of what it was like in the Civil War and how hard it must have been for President Lincoln, losing his son and being in the midst of a war. That's Lincoln in the Bardo. It's a really, really good book, and I highly recommend it. Number 8, which is Crime and Punishment. So Crime and Punishment is a classic book written by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. It follows a young man named Raskolnikov who believes he's an intellectual, and so he decides to have a little intellectual test. If he murders someone, will he get away with it because of his superior intellect? So basically it follows him in his journey with guilt and grief over what he's done, and how he achieves, I'd like to say, salvation in a way that he forgives himself and he feels forgiven. And it also follows the police investigations towards him. The themes are very interesting, especially the theme of love, which you wouldn't expect the theme of love to be in a book called Crime and Punishment, but it's there and it's really interesting. So I highly recommend that book too. Russian books are not just boring and long. They're very, very heavy and impactful. Number 7, which is The Road Beyond Ruin by Gemma Liviero. So The Road Beyond Ruin is set post-war, and when I mean post-war, I mean post-World War II. And when I mean post, I mean like really post-post, like right after. It's still 1945 and Germany has just lost. A young Italian man named Stefano and a boy he found are crossing Europe to get back home, and they spend some time in Germany. It's definitely very soon after World War II has ended. Some people still believe in Hitler, and some people are just so resigned. May I just say that I am very into historical fiction. I love historical fiction. It's definitely one of my favorite genres because I am completely into World War II. My dad and I have studied World War II for a really long time. I've probably seen all the documentaries. I'm reading as many books as possible. I visited Poland just in April, and I decided to take the trip with my German cousin, and she's grown, she's in university, but it's very interesting, the stigma around Nazis and that dark period of German history for them, because it's very off limits, and a lot of German families have secrets. For example, my cousin's boyfriend has never met his grandparents on one side because they were heavily involved with the Nazis, and they've kind of been cast off. Nobody really talks about them. I'm not sure if people know what went on with them because of their involvement with World War II. This book is really interesting because it sheds some light on what life was like for Germans after World War II. This book kind of goes deeper into that because you can see how tortured people are by their Nazi sentiments and how they don't know who to follow in the times after World War II. So I really like the book. It also goes into a little bit of mystery and thriller. It starts off really low-key. You don't really know how all the characters are going to intertwine, and at the end, you realize how intertwined the characters really are. Number 6. Yeah, that's right. Okay. The Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. So I've always been a huge Harry Potter fan. If you can look in some of my older videos, I'm wearing a Muggleborn sweatshirt. Today I'm actually wearing a U2 sweatshirt because U2 rules. But anyway, Harry Potter has so many themes. Voldemort represents something, and Dumbledore represents something, and Harry represents something, and it's interesting to see how, you know, the story of 3 brothers and the Harry Potter story match up. It's just amazing because J.K. Rowling put so much thought into that. I think it's one of the most interesting book series ever written. It's magical. It's magical. I was always a Harry Potter skeptic. I was one of those people that was like, ew, Harry Potter, wizards, ew, that's disgusting. And I decided one summer, just a few years ago, I think I might try it. So I read it and I fell in love. Harry Potter has always transported me into a different world. If I'm feeling bad, I immediately read Harry Potter because it always brings my spirits up. It's one of the most amazing book series, and I love it. Honestly, if you are a skeptic, you just have to read it, and I'm pretty sure your mind will be changed. Don't watch the movies first, read the books first. Number 5. And this one's actually a tie. So my 5th favorite book is tied between Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys and Little Fires Everywhere. Both of them are amazing books. Salt to the Sea is, again, a World War II historical fiction book because those are the best books. It's about the sinking of the Wilhelm Gustloff, I believe, and it has a whole ton of different characters, and eventually you see how those characters intertwine on the ship. And I think it's really amazing because it brings parts of the World War from Lithuania to Germany to other parts of Europe, and they're all together on the ship sinking together. I think it's a very beautiful book. I really like it. And then the other one that is my 5th favorite is Little Fires Everywhere. This is not historical fiction, it's modern fiction. It's about 2 suburban families. One is a very, let's say, picturesque, average family. What a lot of people think of when they think average American family. Another one is a single mom and her daughter who have been kind of vagabonds for their life and have finally settled in the suburb. And it's interesting to see how much goes on, even when you think something looks perfect or things are just so great. There's so much hidden inside. And so that's what this book kind of goes over and it extracts, and I really love it. It's an amazing book. I can't talk any more about it. You just have to see for yourself. Go buy it. It's really good. My next book is number 4, and this is The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. So Kristin Hannah is one of my favorite authors. She is amazing. Like, amazing. And so this book is, again, a World War II historical fiction book. It's about 2 sisters who live in the French countryside and what their experience with World War II was like. One of them is settled and married and happy and has a daughter, and she has a husband that goes on to war. And there are Nazis billeting in her house. The other sister is working as a spy, and I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to spoil the book for you. It's amazing. So detailed and so just amazing. It's one of my favorite books ever. I love this book so much. I've reread it like thousands of times. My next book is number 3, Winter Garden. This is also a Kristin Hannah book, and it's also a World War II historical fiction book. As I said before, Kristin Hannah is one of my favorite authors. She writes this book in an amazing way. She intertwines the present day and the past to make a beautiful story, and it really puts in perspective what it was like. It's about a woman who was alive during the siege of Leningrad, and she barely escaped. She came to the United States with her husband, who was a soldier who liberated her from a concentration camp from the Germans, and she came back to the United States and started a family, but she was always so cut off from that family because of all her grief and her trauma, and dang, it was traumatic. There's one part where she, as the mother of 2 children during the siege of Leningrad, cuts her thumb so her child can have something to drink, even if it's her blood. And it's just one of the saddest things, but it's an amazing book. It's like spectacular. It's just, jeez, I'm having like heart palpitations thinking about it. Number 2, The Great Gatsby. Yes, The Great Gatsby is a classic book. It's fiction, but it's amazing. Great Gatsby is one of the most beautiful books I've read in my entire lifetime. F. Scott Fitzgerald is a genius writer. His writing is so detailed, so beautiful. Just the similes, it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous book. And the love story is gorgeous too. It's tragic. It's amazing. It's about Gatsby, who's a very rich man, a millionaire, but he doesn't have everything he wants in life. He's not happy because he doesn't have Daisy, who he met quite a long time ago, and she's married, and the story is from the perspective of Nick Carraway, who is Daisy's cousin and the neighbor of Gatsby's. And it's just amazing to read the story. There's so many themes in it, and I'll make an entire separate video about The Great Gatsby. I'll make an entire separate video about the Nightingale and Winter Garden and Crime and Punishment, because they're all so good. And so please, please, please buy this book. I'm going to be putting links down below, by the way, for the Amazon of all the books that are on my list. And finally, number 1. It's the big one. My most favorite book of all time, ever, in the history of time. The best book, that, in my opinion. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. So, how long am I going to go on about this? Probably a really long time. Anthony Doerr is one of my favorite authors. All the Light We Cannot See, you guessed it, it's a World War II historical fiction book, but it is such a good book that I just can't. It's so beautiful. It's gorgeous. His writing style is amazing. It makes you feel so much. You feel so much. So it's about 2 almost opposite people. A young French girl, she's blind, she's living with her uncle Etienne, who's kind of eccentric, but also very interesting. And she is experiencing the war from a standpoint of someone who can't see, yet is still under Nazi occupation and is constantly fearing for her life. But it's an amazing book to read about what she experienced and how it ties into some more gritty things, a bit more political, because it also intertwines with the other main character's side, and the other main character is named Werner. He's a young German soldier who is working for someone who is doing some sketchy things, besides, sketchy things as in killing millions of Jews, other sketchy things involving art and some fancy jewels, let's just say that. And he is a soldier, and he's very distraught because he doesn't support killing all these people, and it breaks his heart, but he's also forced to do it or they'll kill him. But it's so crazy just to read this and watch at the very end of the book as the characters intertwine, and then what happens when they intertwine. It's tragic. So sad, but it's so beautiful, and I just really love it. And I don't know if I can say any more. You're gonna have to read the book yourself. It won a Pulitzer Prize, which is like amazing. Anthony Doerr is a very talented author. Honorable mention time. Another Anthony Doerr book about Grace is really, really good. It's a fiction book. It's modern fiction. And this book only didn't make the list because I couldn't finish it. I couldn't finish this book because it was so sad. It just brought so many different emotions in me that I was kind of in a funk for a few days after reading this book. Next is Very Good Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse, and it's also kind of a classic. They're short stories, and yeah, they're funny, they're humorous, they're awesome to read. My last honorable mention is A Stranger in the House, and it's a really great book. I did a book review on it just a little while ago, and I hope you all like it. You can watch it on my channel. Those were my top 10 favorites, plus some honorable mentions. So thank you for watching this video. Give it a big thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll be back to do some more awesome, funny, literary inspired, music inspired, whatever inspired videos. See y'all later. Bye.